help us understand the role that e2f is playing in supplying data sets.
So, myself, I graduated in AI about over 30 years ago. I even taught AI in university. So, people tend to think of us as an AI company. The CEO has a master's degree in AI, but actually we are not doing AI. We are not in the software. We are not in the development. We are not building the engines. So the only thing we do is we work with AI companies. We work with people who have engines and need to improve them, need to train them. And we work together with them to define the data sets that they need to improve or expand their engines. And we just build those data sets. So what we do is called collection. So we collect voice samples in a different number of ways, and we annotate those voice samples. And what we deliver to our clients is annotated, usually speech or text data sets that they then use to train their engines. So there's a clear differentiation between the AI companies and the collection, the data services companies such as ours.
All right. And what are the typical steps in creating a data set?
It really depends on the type of data. So, for example, what we do a lot here is a speech data set. So to build a speech data set, the first step is to collect, right? To collect, as I was describing before, we can record people, or we can use content that has already been recorded, and then we validate those. The collection step is always the first one, right? And again, I can talk about that later, but there are a variety of ways where we can collect voice. So that's the first step. Once this is done, we validate and annotate the data sets. For example, if it's a conversation between two people, we're going to have to annotate and explain, for example, that the first person is like a 50 years old male. The second speaker is a younger female. This is their background, etc. So we provide as much information as possible on the speakers of what is the voice included in that particular recording, and then we segment those files. So that's after collection. Usually the second step is segmentation, where you take that whole maybe an hour conversation and you cut it in small pieces of a few seconds. Every time there's a speaker change, every time there's a sentence change, every time there's a silence, music, a noise, you may cut these big file into smaller ones, right? And then what you do is you transcribe them. So there's a third step, which is the transcription step. So why is done this way is like to train an engine, it's much better if you train the engine with very small entities, right? So it's better for an engine to be trained at a sentence level. It's harder, from what the data scientists tell us. It's not very useful for them to train an engine with a full hour of audio. They need to train it with small segments of a few seconds each. So again, collection, validation and annotation, segmentation, and then transcription. So you can see the transcription at a segment level annotation, and whereas the initial collection annotation is like a file level annotation. And then once we've done all that, we run some integrity tests, and we combine all those little individual segments into a fully annotated data set.
All right. And so through the process that you just described, how is quality ensured? And what is the most important step?
I don't think that there's a most important step. I think every step is equally important, because if you want the quality of your data set to be as high as possible, each step of your process has to be as qualitative as you can. For example, so as far as collection, where if you try to say, like I was saying earlier, you're trying to teach Spanish to your engine, but you're trying to build an engine for Spain. but you take people from Mexico, well, you're not in the right demographic, right? So if your collection, if you don't collect exactly in the target that you're trying to train, then of course it's not going to work, right? Another thing that if your distribution is wrong, right? So if you over collect men versus female, or if you over collect from a particular geographic, like a particular location, particular city in Spain, then your collection is not going to be balanced. It's not going to be equally distributed. So when you train the engine, your engine is going to understand better this or that particular demographic, right? So this is very important, right? Collection has to be very precise. And as those voice assistance company are improving and getting most of the general cases handled, as we are working more and more on edge cases, on particular accents, particular domain, to make sure that your collection is really accurate, that the sentence structure is correct, that your demographic is correct, is super important. Segmentation is also very important, right? If you don't segment properly, if you don't automatically cut the sentences the way they should, if you, for example, if you have a segment where you actually have two speakers speaking, the question and answer are in the same segment, you don't, then your engine is not going to be trained properly, right? So segmentation is important. Our clients, actually, we are sometimes getting work from other collection companies because our segmentation is better than theirs. And then our clients are saying that when the segmentation is not very accurate, if there's a little bit of silence at the beginning of the sentence that has been left over, if there's silence within a segment that has not been removed, and things like that, that will really lower the quality of the training. Transcription, the same thing, right? What you provide to the engine is a voice sample, an audio file together with its transcription. Well, if the transcription is not fully accurate, well, you are creating issues in the training, right? So if you're saying this is if I say one word and I write another one, and then that's what you teach your engine, obviously the engine is not going to learn much from that. So in general, any bias that is present in the data sets will lower the quality of the training. So, and bias can be, again, introduced at every stage, right? Wrong demographic, wrong distribution, wrong sentence structure, wrong speech in general, wrong segmentation, wrong transcription. Any of those would lower the quality of the data set and then have an influence, a direct influence on the quality of the training.
Okay, so let's talk about collection, the process of collection itself. So where and how do you collect data?
Well, we collect data at the source, right? So it really depends on what our clients are looking for, right? If our clients, as I was saying before, are trying to improve the quality of their Spanish voice assistant for people speaking with a Catalan accent, well, we're going to go to Barcelona, right? We're going to either ourselves or through the crowd or working with particular vendors, some of our subcontractors, in Barcelona or in Catalonia, in Spain in general. We're going to work with them to do the collection, to recruit participants, record participants. It really depends, right? Depending on what you build, what we are doing is we're spending a lot of time on finding what would be the best way to recruit people for that particular collection. I can give another example. So if as I was saying before, if you want to build an engine in English who understands conversations between software engineers,
right?
I cannot just recruit, use anybody in the US who speaks English and ask them to pretend to be engineers, right? They are not going to understand what they're talking about. It's going to be obvious in the recording, so you would not train your engine properly. So the only way that we would consider doing that if we have the ability to recruit actual software engineers, put them in a room, have them discuss with each other, and then record that. If we don't do that, if we use somebody who's an accountant or somebody who's a translator and have them pretend to be engineers, they won't even pronounce the words properly. The sentences won't make any sense. So that's, again, anytime that you need to train an engine for a particular purpose in a particular demographics, you have to do your best to collect in that particular demographics. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
So I understand that some of that information may be protected by your contract with your customers and specific engagements that you've done, but is there a way you can give us a few examples of data sets that you've created or that you've worked on and their particular use?
So yeah, I mean, in general, what we've been doing like new languages, right? So I'm not going to give actual languages that we've done, but for example, some of the voice assistants are not available in Bulgaria currently, right? Because nobody has done that. So it's quite possible that next year we will be doing a specific collection in Bulgaria and then record people speaking Bulgarian, so that our clients will then be able to launch at least a general purpose voice assistant in Bulgarian, right? Then new accents, like I was describing before, you may have an engine that works very well for Spain, Spanish in Spain, but doesn't work well with people having a Catalan accent, right? Or it may work very well in the US, but it does not understand people in Alabama or in Boston or in any particular area of the country because the accent is slightly different. Your voice assistant recognition is lower. So we help with this type of connection. We also do like specific domains. It's not going to give a real life example, but as I was saying before, a new domain might be, you want to build a device that understands software engineers' conversations. That would be a new domain, right? You may have a very good generic purpose English voice assistant, but it doesn't understand software engineers speaking about software. So that would be a new domain, right? Another thing that we do is a specific client, like as I was describing before with event burgers. You may have even a very good software that takes orders and everything, but it doesn't work for event burgers because event burgers have their specific product name, their specific terminology, and then it's not well, or it's not 100% recognized the way it should by the voice assistant. So new customers. And another thing that we might do also is like a new audio environment, right? Maybe your voice assistant, it works really well. However, on a rainy day, if people use their phone and it's raining outside, well, in that particular environment, the recognition is not good enough. So that's another type of collection we've done.